If you've done a Kitchener stitch before, then doing one on an I-cord is not going to be any trouble for you. Now if you look along here, I've come all the way around my blanket, and I picked up the last stitch I want on the edge, and I have my 4 I-cord stitches here. So I move my needle. That should look like familiar. That should look like the top of a Kitchener stitch. And then what I'm going to do is take the other needle end from the end of my cord, from my circular needle, and I'm going to go through and pick up the 4 invisible cast-on stitches that I started with. So just like any Kitchener stitch, the yarn is coming from the back right-hand side, just works out that way perfectly, and I'm going to, well, actually, first I need to make sure that my stitches are facing the right direction on my needle. It looks like I twisted up a couple of them. I'm going to get them to sit properly before I go wandering off into Kitchener stitch land. Okay, now I think I'm really ready to go. Sometimes when I pick up stitches from a invisible cast on, I get a little confused as to what exactly I'm doing. Okay, now we're ready to go. So I knit off and purl through. Then I move to the back, leaving that stitch nice and loose because I'm going to tighten it to match the gauge later. And here in the back, I purl off and I knit through. Move back, keep it loose, nice and loose, okay? Knit off, purl through, go to the back, purl off, knit through. Knit off, purl through, purl off, knit through that last kind of loose stitch there. Don't worry about it, you're going to tighten it all up later. And on the final one, knit off and purl off. There you go. So now all you want to do, you can see these are all very, very loose. You can use your needle or you can use a little crochet hook, but just like a regular Kitchener stitch, you just want to tighten up all of those stitches. And see, you can use this stitch here, you're going to use to tighten up closer to the body of your knitting. There, see? And all you're going to do is tighten that all up, and it'll end up looking fantastic. And it takes a little more fendangling than a regular Kitchener stitch because it is a tube and you have to kind of figure out, okay, where am I coming from and things like that. But you do eventually, you can see because I'm fuddling around right now, figuring out where I'm coming from. Ah, there we go. So you need to be able to kind of pull things tight when you don't think you know where you're going. Ah, that's what I was missing. Okay, see, so you pull that nice and tight, and then you pull the next one. Remember, this kind of folds under as a tube. Oops, sorry, got out of my thing there. This kind of folds under as a tube, so it's not going to actually be flat as you work it. And again, just keep pulling at it, and before you know it, you'll have it all done, and then all you have to do is weave in the ends, and you're going to have a pretty darn good looking join there. Now before, when I talked about a Kitchener stitch, I made the point that when you're taking the stitches off the needle that you leave everything very loose and go back and tighten it later. Well, an I-cord bind off is absolutely, you must do that, because if you'll notice, I've made my I-cord pretty loose. I went into bigger needles and it's pretty big and fluffy. Now if I had gone through and pulled all those stitches tight as I went, it's a much harder job to pull them loose to make them match this kind of loose gauge that I used. So I kept it very comfortable and relaxed, and look, see, you can barely tell except that you know you've got this little pink yarn here that I left I'm going to use to help me go ahead and weave in this end. Again, I should have left a much longer tail when I did this. That's going to be a bit of a problem, but we'll work on that later. See how that matches though? And now, once I'm finished, you'll barely be able to tell where that is. And my blanket's all finished. See, I'll just kind of tuck that right in like that. Okay.